Moin Moin and welcome to Ralfs Foto-Bude and Ralfs Photo Flight. Yeah, 3 videos about the Q500 from Yuneec. I did the unboxing, the assembly and the checks before the first flight. Yeah, I would love to show you the first flight, but the weather here in northern Germany is really bad, strong rain and wind, and this should be also the next days, so there's no option to make the first flight. And so I thought it's a good idea to make a comparison between the DJI Phantom 2 Vision Plus and the Q500, because these two copters are real similar, and I think there are a lot of people who think about buying a copter and think about which one is better for me, which one fits my needs better, and so I think it's a good idea to make a first comparison of these two copters. Why first comparison? Because with this one I didn't do any flights, so I cannot say how the flight is, I cannot say how stable the copter is in flight and stuff like this, but I can compare the basic stuff. I can compare the batteries, the remote control, the camera, except for the picture quality. That's I want to do when I did the first flights with this one, and have video material and photo material to compare between these both copters. But the basics, propeller size, weight and stuff like this, I can compare, and I think it's a good idea so you get a first overview about the two copters, because they are in the same price area and they are real good comparable. So starting with the batteries of the two copters, both of the copters has lithium polymer batteries. The one from the Q500 has a 5400 milliampere hours. It's a 3S lithium polymer battery, and the one of the Phantom has 200 milliampere hours less. So that's 5200. It's also a 3S battery, and both batteries are unique for the copters. So you can't use the normal lithium polymer batteries. You have to use the special batteries of the Phantom and of the Yuneec. They are both fitted or suited for the copters, and you have to use them. With the Phantom, there's an additional electronic here on top of the battery, which gives the signal how fully charged the battery is, and you also activate the copter with this button and start the copter with this button. One of the reasons I think both companies use these special things is the one reason they want to sell the expensive batteries, because they are a little bit more expensive than the usual lithium polymer batteries in this size. And the other reason is they know that the people who buy these copters are beginners and they don't want to know anything about lithium polymer accus, or they don't know about anything about lithium polymer accus, and they want to give you a complete package. And the reason is we have a charger here for the DJI batteries. You just put the charger here in, and that's it. Put it on the table and start charging. You don't have to know anything about lithium polymer accus, about balancing and stuff like this. Just charging and ready, and that's it. But in my opinion, it's good to know how lithium polymer accus work, and it's good to know that they are not dangerous, but there is a certain risk of burning of these batteries, and you should store them good, and you shouldn't store them in your, I don't know, in your office without a protection and stuff like this, because they can burn and there are certain risks. So it's good to know a little bit more about lithium polymer accus. So this is the charger of the DJI battery, and now I show you the charger of the Q500. That's the charger of the Q500. I showed you in the third video also, when in the second video, sorry, when I assembled the whole stuff. And there at the back side of the battery, you put the cable in, and that's it. You get the power supply for the normal for at home, and in addition to this, you get a power supply for your car, so you can charge these batteries also with this adapter and the charger in your car. That's a plus point of the Q500, because if you want to do the same with the DJI, you have to buy an extra car charger, which costs you about, in Germany, about 60 or 70 bucks. So that's a good extra we have here in the Q500 included. The price for the batteries, the Q500 batteries, spare batteries, are a little bit cheaper or a little bit lower than the spare batteries for the Phantom. But we have now also spare batteries which doesn't come from DJI but from another company, also with a little bit extra power. So the market is a little bit in movement, so I think the batteries here will get a little bit cheaper in future. Coming to the size and the propellers, first of all, the propeller size, as you can see here, move the copter here a little bit here closer, and then you can see here the propeller size. I remove one of the propellers here from the Q500. The propeller size is quite different. So let's see, the propeller of the DJI has a size of 23 centimeters. That's about 9-inch. And the propeller size of the Q500, that's about 33 centimeter. And I think this is 13-inch. Don't hit me. I think it's 13-inch. 25.4 is 10, 11, 12, 13 or 14-inch. That's the size of the Q500 propellers. So they are much bigger than the one of the DJI. Looking for the distance of the motors, and if we have a look here at the Phantom, we have a distance of almost 26 centimeters, and when we have a look here at the Q500, we have a distance of 37 centimeters. So that's about 10-12 centimeters more than the distance of the motors here at the Phantom. And this gives you a little bit more stability in air, because if the distance of the propellers is wider, you have more stability in air. I hope this will I see when I make the first flight, that the copter is a little bit more stable in the air. I have a hexacopter, a bigger hexacopter, which has a distance of more than 60 centimeter, and the difference between this copter and the hexacopter is very big, talking about stability in the air. The hexa is much more stable in the air, and if there are coming wind gusts, it's not shaking so much like the DJI, and that's what I hope also for the Q500, that there is a different, and you have the bigger propellers which give you a little bit more power, a little bit more stable flying. And so I hope that there is a difference between these, talking about stability and movement, because if you want to make videos in air, you have to have a stable copter. You have for sure the 3D gimbal, but also it's important to have a stable copter and to fly smooth and gentle. And so I hope that the Q500 gives you a little bit more stability. When the copter has a smaller distance between the propellers, usually the landing gear is also smaller, and yes, that's true. When we measure here the distance of the legs of the landing gear, we get about 15 centimeters. That's about 15 centimeters distance of the legs. And when we compare this to the Q500, we will see that the distance of the legs is almost 30 centimeter. So that's about, not exactly, but almost double the size. And why is this good? Because if you are a beginner and you fly in windy conditions, not in storm, then you shouldn't fly. But if it's a little bit windy or gusty, the problem is the landing, because when you land, when you go down, you get a little gust, and then it's very likely that the copter will turn over. And I know a lot of pilots which are flying the Phantom, which made this experience with their first flights. The copter turned over during the landing, and they crashed the propeller, or the copter gets dirty, or I don't know. You have trouble. You will not damage the copter at whole, but still it makes you angry, and it's a point which in my opinion isn't so good. I would love to see a little bit wider landing gear at the Phantom. There are people who make wider landing gears. You can change it by yourself. There are different landing gears you can buy, but in the standard version you have the small landing gear compared to the wide landing gear, which gives you much more stability when you land. So I think this is for beginners. It's much better when you have a little wider landing gear to land the copter very good. Coming to the next point, that's the weight. The weight is actually, it's not a problem unless you want to carry the copter during hiking trips, or you want to take it during flights, and you have a limited stuff which you can take to the airplane, and then it's important to take less weight as possible. But otherwise it's no problem unless you're under 5 kilograms, but that's only in Germany. It's from country to country different. Canada has an extra law now, which I read here in Germany, that they changed it a little bit. In Germany we have the 5 kilo limit. Everything which is under 5 kilo, you don't need a license. If you have over 5 kilograms, you need a single license for every flight. And so in Germany it's only important to get under these 5 kilograms, and both of them are for sure under 5 kilograms. But still, there's a point almost the same when we talk about the distance and the size of the propeller, because if you have a copter which is a little bit heavier, it's also better in the air. If there's coming a small gust, you can imagine a very light, wide, small copter is blown away with this gust, and as bigger the copter is, as more stable is the copter in the air. So it's good to have a little bit more weight, and so we will check the difference between these copters. I have a scale here, which I put here. It's a little bit difficult to see the scale. I turn it now this way, put the plate on it, and sorry, pressed too early. So that's it. Here we go, and 0. Put the vision on the scale and get 1,258 grams. 1,258, and the Q500 is, oops, a little bit moving, is 1,737 grams. So that's about 500 grams, a pound more, almost a pound, around about a pound more than the vision is. And I think that's give the copter also a little bit more stability in flight. and I hope that this is one reason to make more stable flights with the Q500 comparing to the DJI Vision Plus. So these were the points. These were the points: size and weight and battery. Coming to the next point, that's the remote control. And when you compare the remote control, this is the remote control of the DJI Phantom. This is the new one. I especially want to compare the new one from the version 3 because this one has the new built-in battery and has the jog dial to move the camera, to tilt the camera. I compare the new one because I think that most of the customers buy the stuff new and they want to know which one is better, the Vision or the Q500. And when they buy new, they will get most likely the new remote control with a built-in battery and the jog dial for tilting the camera. I start now the remote control, and we have here the extra Wi-Fi connection or the Wi-Fi repeater where you get the FPV picture from the copter. This one is built in. I show you later in the Q500. Here we have an extra Wi-Fi extender. I remove the propellers before I start the copter because they usually don't start automatically, but when it happens, I will not have a copter here in my office flying around and hit me or hit the cameras. Here we are. Now I start the Vision. Here we hear the sound. And as you can see here, there's no monitor in the remote control. We only have the jog dial here to turn up and down the camera. As you can see here, the camera turns up and down. I can show it a little bit more, a little bit better here. When I turn the jog dial, you see the camera moves up and down. Then we have the two sticks, flying up, flying down, turn left, turn right, fly forward, backward, left and right. Then we have the switch here to change between the different flight modes. GPS, ATI. ATI means without GPS control, only holding the height. And manual, there you can fly the copter completely manual without additional hold of the height and without GPS control. That's the right one. And on the left side, we have the different flight modes, home lock and course lock. There's one video where I show the differences between the home lock and the course lock, where I explain exactly what this means. And that's it. Nothing more in the remote control. On the back side, we have a trainer Scholar connector where you can put a second remote control on, and then you have a trainer and the Scholar, which has the second remote control to learn flying. But I think in this area it's not so important to have this feature. One important thing, when you want to have the FPV picture, and I'm sure you want the FPV picture because there are also some things you can see how far the copter is, how the speed is, the distance is, and so on. So you need the FPV connection, and if you want to have the FPV connection, you need an additional device. So there's no built-in device. You need a smartphone or you need a tablet computer like the one I have here, an iPad, to connect the camera with the smartphone. It's very easy, very simple. Just go to the Phantom here, and then you have an app. Takes a time to connect with the Phantom. Here we are. and then you have a DJI app, and in the DJI app you hit the camera symbol, and then you will see, here we are, let the picture, here's my control monitor on the other side, and here I can move the camera up and down. So you have different controls here. You have this sign where you can see how far the copter is, in which direction the copter flies. You have different controls here, which I explain a little bit later. You can start a picture, you can make a picture and start a video. You have the information about the battery level of the copter and the battery level of the Wi-Fi extender. And one important thing, which I show also a little bit later, but I will talk about this now too, is you have the option for waypoint flying. There it is. You have the option for a waypoint flying where you can set different points to fly, so the copter automatically fly the different points. That's one thing we have here also. But I will show you a little bit more between these two devices a little bit later when I come to the remote control here. Talking about the cameras, that's the picture where you see the first person view here. Talking about the cameras, the Phantom has a 14 megapixel camera and the Q500 has a 12 megapixel camera. The difference between these 2 megapixel is only important for the still pictures, because in video mode usually it's not so important, because you have full HD resolution, and full HD resolution is 1920 by 1080, and that's about 2 megapixel. So you have to make out of these 12 or 14 megapixel a picture of 2 megapixel, and the difference between the quality shouldn't be very high. So for video the difference is not so important. Talking about still pictures, there could be a difference, and another reason why there could be a difference is because with the DJI you can make raw pictures. If you know a little bit about photography, you know that you can make with the raw pictures a little bit more with the special programs like Lightroom or Aperture or Photoshop. There you can develop the raw picture and make it a little bit precise, or make more precise corrections than with a JPEG picture. JPEG picture gives you also options to change the colors, the darkness and stuff like this, and the contrast. But with a raw picture you have more options and you can do it a little bit more precise than with a JPEG picture. So this is an advantage of the DJI, because here you can make raw pictures. With the Q500 you're not able to make raw pictures. Okay, so next point is the remote control of the Q500. This is the remote control of the Q500. It's a little bit bigger, and one of the main reasons is because here at the section we have the monitor where you can see the FPV picture and where you can see the flight data. I switch the remote control now on, and during the remote control starts I remove the propellers because they are much bigger, and if the Q500 starts accidentally, I don't want to have this one in my office too, so let's remove the propellers just before I start the copter. So the remote control started. Now I can switch on the copter, and now it takes a time to start. In between I can show you the most important points here on the remote control. We have still the sticks, same like the DJI, up, down, turn left, turn right, forward, backward, left flight, right flight. In the setting of the remote control you can change between 4 different modes to set up the stick. So there are different modes to set up the stick. This is mode 2, and exactly the same mode is on the DJI remote control. I think in DJI you can change between mode 1 and mode 2. At the Q500 you can change between mode 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. I think between 4 different modes you can change, where the sticks are in another order, but usually you fly in mode 2, like I said before. On the left side we have the jog dial, or a dial where you can move the camera. If you look to the camera now, here is the camera. If you look to the camera moves up and down. Now the camera moves up. Here you can see how the camera moves up. So that's the dial to move up and down the camera. On the right side we also have a dial. It shows a rabbit and a turtle, and what this means is you can adjust the sensitivity of the sticks. In other remote control it calls expo curve, and there you can say how sensible the sticks or the copter should react. And especially when you make video flights, you want a smooth and slow flight, you want smooth turns, and then you put this dial to turtle, and the copter is a little bit more smooth in the turns. If you want only to fly a little bit more faster and have fun, or you want to set different steps for photography, and there you only want to fly to a certain position, make a picture, next position, and this you can make very fast. Then you can fly in the rabbit. You should put the stick in rabbit position. Left side, take a picture button. Right side, take a video button. Here we start and stop the engines, and here we have the different flight controls. We have Smart, Angel and Home, what this means I will show you later at the first flight, and I will explain the differences between these 3 settings here of the flight mode. These buttons have no function, and then we have here the control monitor with the most important informations. We have the setting here about the mode, GPS, how many satellites the copter has. Yes, this one says how many satellites a copter receive, the position. Then we have here the satellites with how many satellites the remote control receive. Yes, the remote control has a built-in GPS receiver. Then the Wi-Fi signal and the battery mode. And then we have the battery mode of the copter, altitude, speed and distance. Here we have the different settings. I showed you the settings in the second video, I think, or in the third video I showed you which settings you have here. And you still have here the live view, the FPV picture. One difference here, we have no HDMI output or analog output, so there's no built-in option to put a cinemizer or any other FPV equipment on the remote control. But there's a trick when you want to have an extra FPV signal for a cinemizer glasses or for an extra monitor or for an extra device. You have to have a smartphone with a 5.8 gigahertz WLAN receiver, Wi-Fi receiver, and then you just go to your Wi-Fi option, and in the Wi-Fi option you will see not only the Phantom, but you will see also, hope so, the Seago 2. Takes a second, where we are. I hope it will show the Seago 2. Yes, here we are, Seago 2. Then we go to the Seago 2, connect. Usually they ask for a password, 12345678990. And then we start the Seago 2 app, which you will find in the Yuneec section of the iOS or Android store. Start it, and as you can see here, we have exactly the same live picture. When I turn the camera up, it's a little bit better to see. Oops, wrong direction. When I turn the camera up, you see here's exactly the same picture as we have on the remote control. The only thing, you don't have the informations, you don't have the flight informations here, but you have the live picture, and so you have the option to put an extra device at the HDMI output. For the iPhone, iPad or stuff like this, you have an adapter, an HDMI adapter, and on Android devices, some of the Android devices has a built-in HDMI output, and so you have the option to put an extra HDMI device here to your smartphone, like I said, Cinemizer, or if you want to have an extra TV set, if you want to make show flights or stuff like this, you also can put an extra TV device on this remote control and transmit the FPV picture. What you hear here is a fan at the back side of the remote control. Inside you will hear this, but outside, if there's a little bit noise, you won't hear it anymore. So this is the remote control. And now comparing the options for the camera. At the Q500 you don't have any options to make a setup for the camera. There's nothing like white balance, exposure correction or stuff like this. You only can make a JPEG picture and that's it. You don't have a choice to change between different settings. The only thing is you can change between the settings of the video function, and if you press here you can see we have 1080p, so the full HD resolution with 48 frames per second, 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second. In Europe I use the option 50 frames per second. And that's it. You don't have any more choices. You don't have any more settings of the camera. That's it. Everything, only the frame rate you can change. And you don't have waypoint flying. Still now, maybe there's an option coming with a firmware update, but at this point you don't have waypoints flying. You don't have a map, and yes, you have here like a compass, but it's not the same like at the DJI. And one point difference between the Phantom and the Q500, you don't have a computer software to plug in the remote control or the copter to make several settings at the computer, like gain values or maximum altitude and maximum distance and stuff like this. You have no option to calibrate the sticks or stuff like this. So at this point, December 2014, there's no computer program where you can connect the Q500 and make different settings of the firmware or make a firmware update. But Yuneec says, yes, we will have these tools in future. I don't know how long it takes, but yes, they will have this in future. They also will have a support section on their homepage where they give you firmware updates and stuff like this. So wait a little bit, have a little bit patience. Yes, they will come up also with the same stuff or similar stuff like we have now at the Phantom 2. So go back to the Phantom 2, and as I said, yes, we have a computer program, and in the computer program we have some options to change the gain values, to change the different settings for maximum height, maximum distance, flying home, where the copter goes up like 30 meters and comes automatically to the home point. There we have different settings. So it's a little bit more advanced, like at the Q500, where we don't have these settings. Coming back to the video function or to the photo function, I will show you which settings you can make here at the Vision Plus. When you go to this dial here, then you will see that we have here at the side, we have different options where we can make a serial of 3 or 5 pictures. We have different picture size, resolutions for video 1080p, but only with 30 full frames or 60 interlaced. We don't have the option like at the Q500 60p or 50p. Then we have what I said before, RAW or JPEG. Q500 only RAW. Then we have the auto ISO or individual ISO setting, white balance, metering, exposure control, different picture settings, and that's it. No, we don't want to reset it. That's it. So you have some more options here to set the camera. But the big question is the picture quality better then? Because when the camera is real good and makes everything by herself very good and make a good white balance and stuff like this, good ISO setting, so the picture quality can be exactly the same like the Vision. As I said before, the only difference is we have here no raw pictures, so we are a little bit more limited in the programs like Lightroom, Aperture or Photoshop. As I said before, we have the waypoint flying here. When you swipe this one, you can make here, you can set up the different waypoints and make a waypoint flying. It's now not possible because we have only 3 satellites. This one works only if we have more than 6 satellites, so I can set waypoints by now. But usually we have the waypoint setting and can make the different waypoints here, and you have the automatic waypoint flying. That's one feature you don't have at the Q500 now. They can make it, but when it comes, I don't know, and so at this point you have it here, but not at the Q500. Then we can go back to the settings here, and in the settings we have different options. Preview quality, you have ground station, that what I showed you just a second before. We have the compass calibration, battery setting, dynamic home point. Dynamic home point means when you move around, the home point moves with you as long as you have a device with a GPS built in, and the GPS of the smartphone or the tablet gives you the new position, and so the home point follows you when you walk around. But it's not a follow me flight, so it's not like running or skating or bicycling and the copter follows you. That's not, it's only the home point where the copter flies back when it lost connection or when you start the fly back sequence, that the copter flies back to your home point. So these are some more options here at the Vision compared to the Q500, but still the Q500 is absolutely new when you compare this to the first Phantoms which come out I think 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, and even if you compare this to the Phantom Vision which I bought a year ago, I think exactly a year ago, when you compare how the software and the firmware graded up over the year, I think there will come much more at the Q500 in the next year. So they're still at the beginning, and I expect really much more stuff, much more in the firmware than it is at this point now. Having a look at the cameras, for sure both of them has 3D gimbal. When you see here, I can turn the copter. The camera is absolutely perfect leveled, even if the copter makes fast moves. And also when I make moves left and right. The only thing when I make moves left and right, it's a little bit more limited. Not because of the gimbal wouldn't do it, but you see you have the legs here, and the legs gives you a little bit more limitation. So if you make fast turns, it's not so smooth as I would love to see it. Looking at the here at the Q500, I will turn up the camera a little bit more. So here's the camera a little bit more turned up, and if you see, we have exactly the same, and you see it's, in my opinion, it's a little bit more way you have, not much more, but I think it's a little bit more way you have. And so I hope that especially in video flights, you get real smooth turns and get real smooth fly around objects, and so I hope it's a little bit smoother than with the Phantom, especially because you have the switch to change between the rabbit and the turtle mode, where you can make a little bit more smooth flies. Both cameras has only the option to turn the camera up and down. There's no option to turn the camera right and left, so there's no dial to make the jaw turn left and right of the camera, only up and down. To make the turn of the camera, you have to turn the copter. And as I said before, I hope that the Q500 gives me a little bit more precise turns, because the copter is bigger and I have the dial to change between the rabbit and the turtle mode. And so that's one of my hopes, that it is a little bit easier and a little bit more smooth to make the turns. Both cameras work with micro SD cards, so that's similar. Both have the micro SD cards, 3D gimbals, what I said before, so that's not the big difference. Important point is the quality, and that's what I want to check when the weather gets better. I want to make my first flight. Now it's getting a little bit better, but I don't think it holds too long. So we will see. I hope I can make the flight in the next days, and then I will give you the results, and I will make the next tutorial for the first flight, the pre-flight checks I have done in my last video. Okay, that's it for today. So these were the basic difference between the DJI Phantom 2 Vision Plus and the Yuneec Q500. There's coming up the next comparison when I have done the flight with both copters. This one I know, but this one not. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it gives you a little bit help to decide which copter is your favorite and which copter fits your needs better. Otherwise, wait for the next tutorials I make here on my YouTube channel. If you liked my video, yes, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel, share the video, and make some advertising for my channel. Thanks for watching me. Have some fun while flying, and as always I say bye bye and moin moin.